Hello everyone, welcome to my podcast, to Simon Says, and here we are here to review Stranger Things, Darkness on the Edge of Town. This is the second Stranger Things novel I am reviewing. The last one was Suspicious Minds, and I'm here reviewing it just days before the 4th of July, and that is when Stranger Things Season 3 will be released on Netflix. There's every reason to be excited for it. We get to go back to Hawkins and see characters that we have come to love. These books have been a good way to pass the time and go back to some familiar faces and some new ones. And this book is concentrated on our favorite chief, Jim Hopper. During his rookie days as a detective in New York City, 1977. This is a murder mystery and a thriller taking place in New York City almost more than 40 years ago in the Big Apple. And here we are. It feels, in many ways, when I read books like this in crime or in big cities like New York, I remind you of TV shows, maybe not like Law and Order or Criminal Minds, but maybe I watch TV shows like Gotham, and that is, very much like this book. It reminds me of Gotham very much. It's about a police detective, like Jim Hopper would remind me of Jim Gordon. Also, there's the characters, and there's no Mike, no Dustin, no Lucas, no Will Byers, not even Steve Harrington, the babysitter. But we do have 11, and Hopper, of course. And this takes place. This is a prequel. This takes place long before the events of season 1, and this is actually like a story within a story. Hopper is telling this story his story as a cop to 11, just right, but after the events of season 2, after the snowball, and there are like flashbacks here and there, like a way of storytelling. Like the Princess Bride kind of thing. Even though it's just a few years before the Princess Bride will be released. And also, most importantly, there are other characters in the story. There's, and that takes place in New York. There's the Hopper and the Precinct, along with his detectives, and Captain LaJorna, and also his partner, Rosario Delgado, is, a female cop who's new to the precinct, and she and Hopper make a real dynamic duo in New York. And she's also Cuban, by the way. But also, best of all, we get to see some familiar faces from the TV show. Hopper's old family, his wife Diane, and his daughter Sarah. Now, they had very little screen time on the TV show, but here they are very present in the book, and we get to explore them, how they're important in Jim Hopper's life before the TV show. Now, of course, there's the villains, of course, and they're far, far different than the Mind Flayer, the Demogorgon, or some of the baddies in Hawkins before. When I first started reading this book, it kind of felt slow in the beginning. Well, that was because I was getting to know Hopper's everyday life in New York. His apartment with his family, his routines with his wife and daughter. Also, there's his neighbors and his time as a cop in the precinct and how he got there, how he moved from Hawkins to New York right after he came back from Vietnam. The diners almost look the same, even there's also egg shakes. I mean, Hopper tries to offer 1 to 11 during the story, but then she doesn't get it, and she refuses. That means more for Hopper. But seriously, they still keep 11 right in character. They still keep her faithful from her character from the past seasons, and even when she's hearing the story. And we get to see Hopper driving around, reminiscing about New York, how its pros and cons. Even a little bit, you also see he even goes to see Star Wars for first time. And all those of you who aren't Star Wars, but also he even predicts that Leia will end up with Han, not just because Luke and Leia are brother and sister, but it's what Hopper says that makes me love it, that girls will always like the bad guys. Not all bad guys. The author is Adam Christopher. Adam Christopher, and he manages to weave all the culture and good things of the New York with its underworld, its dark underworld of crime and lowlifes and gangs. And it's still, the story is dark, but still has its good moments. And it's about Hopper and his partner Delgado investigating the ritualistic murders that are of victims who are placed with the Zenith cards. Zenith cards are like cards with different symbols: stars, circles, squares, etc. And these murders is what attracts the attention of the FBI. And Hopper gets himself to become an undercover recruit in the Vipers gang. The Vipers gang are the main suspect in the murders. And if you're thinking of Vipers gang, you might be thinking of the Southside Serpents from Riverdale, but not to that. The Vipers have a much more sinister purpose. So I was very on edge. This is when Hopper was sent as a recruit to the Vipers. This got very exciting and a much better pace. And it was getting excited. I started to read more often of this book. And I wanted to see so much what will happen in the end. He gets to be with these Vipers, and that's why I decided to call it them. And there are individuals, and they're not black and white, not one-dimensional. And they all have their past and futures, and their cons, and they're usually outcasts or from broken people. Even Hopper gets to befriend some of them, which is good when you're undercover, like Leroy and Martha, who are brother and sister. And most of all, these Viper gang is led by the charismatic St. John. And it also gets pretty tense when he's around the picture. And it's obvious who he may be in the central part of the story. And the more Hopper gets deeper into this, he realizes its sinister purpose, and it's way bigger than anyone could imagine for the scale of New York. And all the characters, not just Hopper, who is undercover, it's also his partner, Delgado, who is going on her own adventure to uncover murders and also investigate our people. And there's also another character that we saw in the beginning of the story, named Lisa Sargensen. She's like a fortune teller, and she even I was also mysterious around her, and she tries to make things better for our people. And well, she's a character, and sometimes the best part about Stranger Things is even the minor characters can be important. That's what makes it good. And their storylines all try to come together, and it all starts coming together. It gets very tense with the Vipers and St. John, and you're trying to find out why these murders are, and you're wondering, thinking if the Vipers had something to do with these Zendikar murders, and why St. John is so mysterious. And they all weave together for something very big in the end. So it's crazy, because this is like a prequel book, and you wouldn't expect Hopper to end up in some sort of adventure kind of thing, which leads to a big climactic finale in this book. And it explains a lot, because when we first met Hopper in Stranger Things, we thought he would be like normal drunk, but when he was going to Will Byers' investigation, we saw that he didn't back down like other cops who the lab told to back down. But because in this book shows that he has experience when dealing with mysteries, that he knows how to interrogate, how to break noses, and go into the risk of danger. And this book was very necessary to read, get to understand Jim Hopper's character. It shows him to a time before we saw him as the drunk guy who would say, "Mornings are for coffee and contemplation. That's it, final." But it shows him on this journey, and he's reminiscing it to his now adopted daughter, 11. And it's really good to get to know his character, and it's also preparing to see him again in the third season. I wouldn't say this is the very best book of all time, but it was a far more exciting and much more action-packed than the previous novel, Suspicious Minds. This is about Chief Hopper. It's a cop in New York City, but it was very fun. It was a little bit slow in the beginning. I was having a hard time trying to co-op with it, but it was getting really excited. The characters were good. They were better than other characters from our books like this, our Law and Order books, and they were very cool. And not just because of Stranger Things, but it's a mystery, and everybody loves mystery. Well, almost everyone. And I would like to, and even if I'd be pretty upset if none of you have read this book, this is a very good way to understand Chief Hopper in his past, and also his past and future. And I would like to give this book a solid 8.5. Usually because it was slow at first at the beginning, and there were some parts that may have been taken out, but it started to become really good in New York City, and not much motion going on, but enough to go on. Okay, now finally we get to go into the spoiler section. Now the biggest reveal is about St. John, and now we also find out that that he's a Vietnam veteran like Jim Hopper, but he has far more PTSD. And the crazy part is he has some sort of, the reason why he's leader of the gang makes it so easy because he has some sort of power that that helps him control the recruits he's gaining. That helps him. He preys on weak people, vulnerable people like outcasts or vulnerable veterans with PTSD. Is because after Vietnam he was enrolled in a program, and while Hopper tries to assure Eleven that it has no connection with her, there's no doubt that St. John enrolled in the program MK Ultra, leading right back to Hawkins' lab and its scariest man alive, Dr. Martin Brenner. Now, when Hopper is sent to as an undercover recruit, this is when the story gets even more exciting and at a better pace. You get to be with the Vipers, and the Vipers, they're not like crazy bad guys or one black and white. Each Viper, that's what I like to call them. Each person in this group is more dimensioned. They're complex people, a little bit like outcasts and people who are looking for a purpose. And also, Hopper makes friends with these different people, like Leroy and Martha, their brother and sister. But most of all, while they may seem like a fine bunch if you get to be their friend, they're led by the charismatic St. John. And the more I read into this game, the more time that Hopper spent with them, it started to get scarier when I realized that they're not just a biker gang in New York, but they're revealed later on a satanic cult-like organization. And the craziest part is what they called St. John during this program. He was called Subject Zero. That's it. He may be the first letter in the participants. We have a 6, 8, and 11. The three girls that we have seen in other books as an 11, the one we all know and love, and Kali Prasad, also known as number 8, as the girl named 6, who was in the comic series, and this man, St. John, the main villain of Stranger Things, Darkness on the Edge of Town, it was named number 0. And we maybe and the crazy part is he's an adult, and there may be been other adult participants because, like we saw in Suspicious Minds, there were other subjects like Eleven's mother, Terry Ives, and she had perhaps found a way to have powers as well, like her daughter, have nosebleeds. But I don't think I saw St. John having nosebleeds as well, and he has become very delusional and stressed after his ordeal at the lab, and no one believed him what he had been through, so he resigned to build this cult-like organization. And when Hopper digs deeper into this organization he has recruited himself in, he realizes that St. John has organized a satanic cult-like organization bent on destroying New York. And I know it's crazy. When I thought he was talking about the devil, I thought it was a figure of speech concerning the Mind Flayer or the Upside Down. That's what I was excited about. And that's what the fortune teller was saying at the beginning of the novel. And the sad part about Lisa Sarkinson is that she dies. Yes, she dies. She becomes the 4th victim in the ritualistic card killings. And so we have, first in season 1, we had Barb dying in season 1. We had Bob Newby dying in season 2. And now we have Lisa Sarkinson dying in Darkness on the Edge of Town. And so you can all just say justice for Lisa, just like justice for Barb and justice for Bob, plus justice for Muse. And that's sad. We didn't how she had to die. It was very sad, you know. And Jim Hopper had to witness the ordeal. And another twist, he gets help from Martha, another Viper who he thought he couldn't trust, and because it was Leroy, her brother, who asked Jim Hopper to infiltrate the Vipers to save his sister. But actually, Leroy was the one who needed saving, and Martha saves Jim Hopper, and they get out, and there comes the big blackout. Now, in New York, there was a blackout in 1977 that made the city that never sleeps without lights for a long time. And in here, in the book, it says that St. John is responsible for this blackout. I don't know how they did it in real life, but Stranger Things universe has found a way to weave its way with reality and fiction. And so Hopper and Martha go for this hell of a crazy New York. It's been turned into a war zone. So the mystery thriller has turned into an action-packed adventure war thriller, and it's really getting exciting. Everybody on tense, and everybody feels like nobody is safe. And it's kind of reminds me of other Batman movies, but more than that. And now it all transcribes into this big, great, vicious battle. And even there's with Hopper and Martha breaking noses against vipers and going on motorcycles. They're going on motorcycles like Indiana Jones did, and all in this motorcycle chase. It all leads up to this big battle at the institute where St. John was tutored, and the fifth victim intended Hopper's partner Delgado. She's almost put in a sacrifice position like Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom style, but not with the burning lava or hearts. Forget that. But almost like in an Exorcist kind of way. And Hopper goes against time to save her, and it all culminates with this big battle against St. John. And it's all really exciting, you know. This is what everybody wants, you know. I like it was a story where the hero goes against the antagonist in one big battle, and that's what makes it exciting. And in the end, Hopper is the one to, well, not unintentionally stabs St. John, ending him for good. And that's what kind of had me almost worried, because if St. John died, then that makes him the fifth victim of the sacrifice. There had to be a sacrifice, and that's what kept me worried. But still, Hopper and Delgado live, they're saved, and Hopper unites with his family, and even he saves Leroy and Martha, and saves them. And he reunites with Deanne and Sarah, and they're cheered for a few days as heroes in the NYCPD. And so, this is where Hopper ends his story with 11, but the also curious thing is, I didn't say it before, but the Hopper joining in with the Vipers reminded me so much when 11 joined her sister and her gang-like thing. Except St. John's gang was much more vicious and with a darker purpose that would have been statefully devastating. And so, like father, like daughter, St. John served as a foil to Hopper, while number 8 from Stranger Things, also known as Callie, served as a foil to 11. And it's like a parallel. And at least both Hopper and 11 came out without becoming their who they were afraid to be. And here they are now. And at the end of the book, it's Christmas time, and Hopper is now telling the end of the story to his new daughter. But it's kind of a bit sad, you know. I was also going at the end of this book thinking that it would lead up to show how his daughter Sarah died and how the family fell apart. But it actually went on the good course, because it tells us in the TV show how Sarah died, because Sarah was the most important part in Hopper's life, because she was his daughter, and her death affects him so much, and it breaks the family apart, and what has Hopper return to Hawkins. To finish this, it shows us how Hopper has come a long way. He lost his family and he thought that he would be a drunk, but the events of the TV show has brought him back to the person we almost see him in the TV show. He has 11 as a daughter now, and that's considered his new family. And we can't wait to see what happens to him in Season 3. So, hopefully you can subscribe to this. I hope you read it before the new season starts. This book was by Adam Christopher, who did so well. I hope to see you next time.